Welcome to the Smithsonian Institute's National Air and Space Museum, Steve Udvar-Hazy Center. This is the larger one that is out right near Dulles, and it is almost 5 times as large as the original on the mall. You can see it's set here in a suburban setting. There is plenty of parking out in the lots. An Uber is generally about $50 or $60 out. You can also take the Silver Line. We're going to show you around everything in here today, so get your running shoes on. Let's go. As you enter, you will go through a metal detector and security, and you're going to enter the Boeing aviation hangar. When you enter, you might want to start at the Welcome Center. Here you can find out about the times for the highlights tours. And for any Smithsonian you've ever visited, I highly recommend the highlights tours. It's a great way to get a lay of the land and really see what you want to focus on, because you're not going to be able to see it all. So this is the main entrance area for the Boeing aviation hangar. The highlights tours are actually going to start under that white Rolex clock up there. I think that's cool that they have Rolexes. I don't know. We'll show it to you when we get a little closer. So this just gives you some idea of the scale. Wow. There's a space shuttle in front of us. There's over 200 planes here. So there's, I think this may be a very, very full day. And I'm looking how we get to where the highlights tours are. Oh, I think probably right down there. Let's go. And you'll see the hangars continue on outwards in what appear to be 3 directions. This is a relatively new facility, so there are elevators and ramps. So it's a fully accessible facility. Wow. This is beyond amazing. I know there's a space shuttle back there. This is the SR-70, I believe. And here, we're going to do a full walk around of this equipment. Well, it is not too busy. Like so many popular things, if you get here when they open, this is definitely when you're going to want to do it. Wow. I mean, to be this close. This close to this type of aircraft and so many others is just a very, very special opportunity. I'm already thrilled. It is a little bit more of a drive out here. You can take the Silver Line, as I mentioned, and then take a short Uber or shuttle. You can also take an Uber or a rental car if you are coming from out of town like we are. And just to give you context, there's nowhere you're going to turn where there aren't planes everywhere around us. This one had 24 years of service and set a speed record flying from LA to DC in 1 hour and 4 minutes. So, if you continue this way, you can actually watch these planes from above, and there are these maps and keys that will show you where you're going. One of the cool things about this is you get to go up on the catwalk above everything. And I'll say, relative to other museums and other popular attractions, one of the nice things about this particular venue is the fact that you never have that feeling of being crushed in a crowd. You really get to get up close and personal with all the aircraft. Now, if you imagine this particular museum, it's arranged in sort of 3 wings: commercial aviation, military aviation, and space exploration. So this wing to the left is commercial aviation. It is actually the largest of the 3, and it's not exclusively, there are obviously, as you can see, military planes down in this part, but as we get out here, you're going to find a lot more of the commercial aviation, which is what we're going to check out, including not only the Boeing 707, but the Air France Concorde. So let's go check it out. So again, you'll see military on this side, and then it transitions to the concourse. So we can go walk over there and we're going to see what it's all about. Now, I don't know if it really shows. To give you an idea of just how cool it is in here, you can look below you and above you and find aircrafts in just about every position, as well as write-ups. I was hoping to do a video to talk about each and every aircraft here, but we'd be here for a few weeks, which I wouldn't mind, by the way.
This way.
One of the most things that you'll actually find here as well is the Enola Gay, which of course played a significant role in World War II. It's one of the more touching exhibits and displays, and we took on the highlights tour, which I highly recommend, by the way. There are actually 3 sections of this. In the front, where most of the flight crew was, there is a middle section that's more or less a tube that you can crawl back and forth to the back of the plane where they have radar, and then you finally have the rear gunner that gets strapped in there and largely has to stay there until the end of the flight. But otherwise, in the rest of the plane, you crawled up and over the cargo container where the bomb was held in order to get in there. So that was really, to see such a historically significant aircraft was one of the more touching things. These engines, interestingly enough, are each 18 cylinders, 9 in front, 9 in back. Very powerful for their era. There are also these ways that you can look inside the cockpits of the equipment. Here, this is actually the cockpit of the Concorde. And you can go sort of 360 up and down. I've actually been in the cockpit of the Concorde long ago. A BA one, not this one, but it is really just amazing to see it here back at the museum. And you have continuously new exhibitions, including the Virgin Atlantic glider, and many, many others. So, as you see here, you can get really close to the cockpit and all of the equipment. We're up on the mid-deck here. There's actually an upper deck that we're going to go to next. But I thought that's just a really interesting perspective to see everything from the air. And as I said, there are planes all around us. And they're not just American planes. This is a Lufthansa plane used during World War II. More planes from World War II. German, Japanese, and otherwise. And I believe this is not a part of the exhibit that you can get to. So these are probably some items that you'll be seeing soon. And in fact, we are entering part of the space hangar and restoration hangar over this way. So back in the restoration hangar, you'll see a variety of aircraft that are being restored, hopefully to be put on display. And you'll see each of them has a sign. So that's a Boeing 247D that they're working on right here. And looking at these over here, these look like probably 1960s era fighter jets. But a lot of very talented men and women working on making these a part of the museum and a part of the collection. This is actually one of the things I think at this museum that would be easy enough. And you'll see here there's a fabric shop, tool crib. There's a full range of machine metal shops as well. So here, we'll just show you some of this as we go over to the next area.
So that I wouldn't get myself buried in it there, oh, now I gotta remove this one. You know, a lot of notes, it took about,
So this will take us also back to the space wing. Once you go past this restoration hangar, it is worth spending some time to come back here and get to watch everything being built and assembled. Up here, we're going to get a world-class view of the space shuttle. This is the Discovery. This particular one has had 36 flights. Forgive me, 39 missions, and was donated by NASA. You can actually get pretty close when you get under there, and we'll show you that in a little bit. You will also find the mobile quarantine unit from NASA for the initial space travelers, where they were quarantined in what was actually a converted Gulfstream, interestingly enough. And here is some of the early, the first manned mission modules that are back here. And you'll look, wow, that was really pretty tight there for that. You can imagine Alan Shepard being in there atop what was actually an Army rocket, but this was literally the module that he was in. It's very small when you see it, to go all the way up into space. And the rocket that he actually took was right over here. So let's go take a look at that. This one marked U.S. Army. They replaced the nose cone with his module, and it was otherwise what was otherwise a military rocket that was used to take him into space and to take our nation into space. So there's all sorts of amazing satellites and other space vehicles up here that you can get a look at. And so we'll just show you a little bit more of Discovery before we move on here. And again, these flew until 2011. You can read a little bit more there if you're interested in some more detail. And has actually spent 365 days in space. Interesting factoid, the engines are so valuable that when it was when the space shuttle was contributed to the Smithsonian here, the engines were taken out and used for other missions as part of the space program. One of the things that I was most struck by in this particular wing, having watched most of these vehicles, space vehicles, go up over the years, is the scale of them. You know, the large impact they had, but in fact, even the space shuttle is not a particularly big aircraft. I feel, you know, it's on the scale of a commercial jet, like a 737, if even that. It's really not that large of a vehicle. And here, you know, it made so much history. Continuing on, we're going to go back to the center where you have, amongst other things, where you'll find the SR-71 as well as other aircraft. We're going to just take a quick look at that over here from above. Probably, you know, really the center of the collection. Fastest air-breathing aircraft ever to fly. It is now decommissioned. It was used primarily for reconnaissance and observation. Interestingly enough, the old two-person cockpit up there. The rest of the center fuselage was largely hold fuel, and then obviously the 2 engines on either side. So, I think we're ready to go up to the next level and check it out. What do you think? Oh, and by the way, over in this wing, just in front of us, this is the 3rd wing, primarily military aircraft. You'll find naval and marine, including the current generation of the F-35. So, let's go over that way, and then we'll get up to the catwalk. Here you are, right behind this aircraft, and you can see it from above. We'll show you from below as well. Everywhere you look in this museum, you're going to find other things that are just, I think, really amazing and cool. And you'll also find other things that are related. Here even they have some firearms. And then of course, going back this way, you'll find these are, even within the war aircraft, this is what's known as the Cold War aviation series. And it includes, interestingly enough, both American and Soviet aircraft, as well as others. One of the movies you can watch in IMAX is the Blue Angels movie. We did that just earlier, and that was amazing. I'll also say the popcorn was really good, and you know, it's really just a great experience for aviation lovers and frankly anyone. Here we can see one of the Blue Angels jets, and then we'll go make a turn and go up to the top. Again, here's one of the maps that you, if you're looking for a specific aircraft or want to know what you're looking at. So for instance, the Blue Angels, if you look on the map, is the McDonnell Douglas 18C Hornet. And this one looks like it has its wings tipped up. Here is a Sikorsky helicopter. I believe this is also the type used by Marine One for the president. Some cool stuff. So once you come up here, you're going to make a turn and go up to the top tier observation deck and catwalk. And you'll see there are arrows. You can go left or right, sort of American car style. We're really fortunate that this museum spreads you out in a nice way. Very comfortable. It is a very hot summer day, but in here you'd never know that. It's actually just a cool breeze. And just when you look, we double back to the space hall here, right? And there it is, the space shuttle. We're obviously a little further, but when you go down on the ground, you could be within 10 feet of the space shuttle, which is amazing. When you're down on the ground, you could be within 10 feet of the space shuttle. You can go underneath the thrusters and back, which is just an experience I would recommend for anyone who ever got to miss school and watched the space shuttle take off when they were a kid, which I know at least a couple of us here have. And this again gives you yet another perspective of the museum when you come in. So that is the Welcome Center up here. I'll just zoom in for a second, that I showed you at the beginning of it. So this gives you an idea of the layout, right? It's largely like a big T with a number of passageways and so forth. So let's take you back out. I'd like to thank Rolex for helping us keep the time here. So there's, in all seriousness, there are elevators if you need or want, or just had enough of the stairs for the day. You can certainly do that. Now we are returning. You will recall that we saw the Enola Gay a little bit earlier. You can see it here from the back, and you can see actually the rear gunner's turret, which is, if I recall, was one of the more risky positions to fly for these type of planes. And here next to the Enola Gate, you'll see some of the Japanese aircraft. And this is going to be most of the military part of the installation. And then we're going to get to the commercial part. Here we'll continue along. And this is, when you're up here, I would say that that wing is all of 5 feet. And this was part of the Atomic Energy Commission in its uranium and so this was actually a plane that was used for uranium exploration, and you'll see it's just a very small, otherwise commercial looking aircraft, but sort of speaks to the versatility of aircraft between commercial and military and exploration uses. All right, not to worry. We are getting over to the commercial portion of the collection here, which I think is really fun. Boeing 707 is one of the more powerful transformational jets in aviation history. Largely moving, if you look over here, we'll show you the Pan Am Super Cruiser that was one of the first pressurized aircraft to fly. It flew about 30 passengers and had berths available for passengers. It's obviously still a piston-driven propeller plane. Then came along the Boeing 707 and revolutionized all sorts of things here. So this particular Pan Am plane was not their earliest ones. They used to have before this, although not on display here, their flying boats, which Pan Am was obviously known for spanning the globe, as well as assisting in U.S. efforts during the war. But they were really the OGs of international air travel around the country. Juan Trippi being their CEO and founder. And this one of their Clippers, is obviously a reference to their flying boat era. The Air France Concorde, I actually did have a chance to fly Concorde once in 2003. I was in 9C, it was on a British Airways one, so I didn't get to fly in this particular one. An amazing experience, just over 3 hours, New York to London. This obviously probably would have flown most often between Paris and New York, but there were other routes as well that Air France flew, including occasionally to the Caribbean, which I think would have been super, super cool. Concordes included room for just about 100 passengers, and the seats, I would say, were very similar both for Air France and British Airways to the seats were typically what you'd think of as domestic first. One of the two things that I would note for Concorde, one, when you flew it, you'll notice those windows are very small. I'll zoom in so you can see them a little bit better. Much smaller than a traditional aircraft window. The reason being that when they got up to above Mach 1, Mach 2, you would fly 55 to 60,000 feet in the air. Obviously, much more in the way of pressurization. So those windows were made smaller for safety purposes. You'd also feel the heat off those windows, and you'd touch the window when you got up above Mach 1 or Mach 2. And both of the Air France and British Airways version, you'd find there was a meter to tell you how fast you're going. But in fact, it is so smooth up there that they would pour you a glass of champagne all the way to the top, and it would be perfectly still, as if it were in your, on a dining table or what have you. Some other equipment that we get to see here, we've seen. Well, let's go a little further. The Boeing 707, by the way, introduced in the early 60s, changed air travel and made it possible to travel cross-country for the masses. Still pretty expensive. It was probably the first progenitor of most of the modern aircraft that we would have today. Pressurized, able to make it across coast to coast in probably about 5 hours. The 707 was actually pretty fast. It ran on 4 engines rather than 2, which most commercial planes do today. Accordingly, thirsty for fuel, but a big advance in air travel for people across the country. In addition to New York City, some of the other places that Air France flew Concorde included Rio de Janeiro, Washington, D.C., and its final flight was on June the 12th, 2003 for this particular aircraft. We are actually just outside of Dulles, so it was not too far of a stretch to get there. One of the things that you'll notice about the very long nose for aerodynamic purposes of Concorde is the fact that it, and I don't know if you can see it here, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can get an idea of where there is a hinge. There are actually 2 windshields, and this nose would tip down upon landing and takeoff because of the steep angle of descent and descent. And so this gives you some idea of what that would have looked like. This aircraft up here is actually somewhat unique. It's the Virgin Atlantic Global Flyer, and it is the first aircraft to be flown by one person all the way around the globe using turbofan technology. 84% of its weight was used to carry fuel, and this was done in 2005 and 6, and it took just over 67 hours to make that journey. There are so many aircraft, helicopters. This is actually a helicopter section here, and what better way to come at a helicopter from a vertical point of view? We'll go take a look at those a little bit later. The scale of things here is just enormous and just fantastic. Of all the resources the Smithsonian has, I have to tell you, this is probably one of my very, very favorite places to visit it, and obviously it is included, funded by the federal government, so there's no admission charges. The food and everything else is otherwise very reasonable, so definitely worth your visit. I hope you have a chance to make it. With that, I think we'll say goodbye for right now. There's so much else to see. We're going to enjoy the rest of our trip. We hope you've enjoyed this one. Thanks so much for watching. Here's something you get an idea of the articulating nose from the side. We showed you from above, and obviously it's at a stationary position right now, but you get an idea of it. I'll also mention Concorde, I said it housed about 100 passengers in most configurations. So it's not a huge aircraft, but not small. I would say it looks bigger than the Space Shuttle, or longer, but thinner. Here's some of the helicopters that you get a chance to take a look at. This is probably a smaller portion of the exhibit, but definitely a worthwhile one. This one right here was the first presidential helicopter, the Bell H-13J. As you can see, Eisenhower, let's see if you can see him in the picture, was right there. This is not a very big one at all. Right now, I believe the Marines for Marine 1 uses the Sikorsky, which we showed on the other end of the hangar. This is one of the early progenitors of a nice open air helicopter. I think you have to be a little bit brave for that one, but looks cool.
Does it walk like this?
So, here you'll see, oh, that's cool. This is actually the landing gear of an Airbus A340, which gives you an idea of the size relative to Concorde. And we're gonna do an undershot to give you an idea of these beautiful Rolls-Royce engines, which when you would take off from New York, they had a special procedure that they would have to cut the engines over land. So you would take off at about 250 miles an hour. They would cut the engines over land, and then they would light each of them, and the captain would come on board over the intercom to tell you when they were going to light each of them, and you'd feel a good sort of thump. Certainly not, it was very civilized, very controlled, but you certainly felt the power of these. And just looking under here, that's a really cool thing of which to be a part. Here there's a nice panorama of the cockpit, which is just amazing, I think. And you know, again, here you can see right up into these Rolls-Royce engines that were standard for both the Air France and the British Airways version of Concorde. Here's another shot of one of the flying Clippers for Pan Am. This one first flew in 1938. Was one of the first pressurized commercial airliners. It was based on the Boeing B-17 bomber and was ultimately delivered to Pan Am as well as TWA. And these flew generally 33 passengers and had berths. Obviously, being they were not jets, these were ones that did require a longer flight time than jet engines, so they're actually pretty comfortable. And there you get a good shot right there. And right here you get another vantage point of the Enola Gay right underneath the nose. Interestingly enough, the front here, they used a mechanical computer to help calibrate when they were going to drop the bomb, and it was used mechanical gears and levers for the type of computation that you'd find probably on your phone or other personal devices today. And then the bomb was actually electronically dropped at the time as indicated. This gives you an idea of what the flight, what the cabin was like. And you can see the carbon door. You can see the doors underneath as well. Now, if you're to turn from the main entranceway by the visitor center, you will find the museum store and the Shake Shack, which are both pretty popular. As you can see, you can overlook some of the simulators down here, which are pretty popular, as well as a lot of the airplanes. The museum store also has some really nice things, and we'll just give you a quick look at the Shake Shack. If we were going to order, we'd get in line down there. But one of the nice things about this Shake Shack versus most of them you'll find This is obviously a much larger operation, and it has the full range of Shake Shack menu items, which are popular just about everywhere I've ever gone. So, give you a feel for the size of that. They also do have a couple of Air and Space unique offerings here, including this Constellation Crunch Concrete. Wow, that actually looks really good. I almost wish I didn't see that. You can get your food over here, and you have a great view out the window. So actually a really nice place to get a lunch when you are out here visiting Air and Space. There is also a small snack bar here with some different to-go items if you're looking for that. Museum store. We're going to do this in pretty quick order because we're eager to get back out to the museum floor. You will find your full range of t-shirts, hats, flight suits, plushies, and replicas. Some of these, including the SR-71 right here, oh, and also pilot sunglasses. Those are cool. I'm gonna admit those are really cool. Space shuttle, lunar module, a lot of great things in here. So definitely worth some time. You can also, there's things for every age. Very young children and very, very grown children. There is also a book corner if you want to dive into further detail about any of the things you've seen here. Science, space, astronomy, commercial aviation, as well as the official guide to the Smithsonian. That looks like a good one. All right, well, I think we're going to head back out to the museum, but this just gives you some idea of what is available here. I hope that that's helpful. And yeah, let's get back. We'll get back to it now. And here you'll see we go down from the entry level up to the 7th level, where the observation deck. All right, who's ready? Here we are. Wow, already this is a great view. And you go all the way 360. So let me take you around here. Obviously, you can see the museum infrastructure here from above, which is, that alone is really cool. And you can see even that there are tarmacs and so forth out there for them to move the various assets in and out of the museum. This way, we're going to look. You can see planes landing. Obviously, it looks like a smaller private jet. We're looking to the north here. And this is the one where you're going to see the runways for Dulles. We'll continue onwards around, and it gives you an idea of just the expansiveness of everything up here. Dulles, of course, we are out in Virginia, so it's very lush and green. We're here in July, and I have to say it's a great place to visit. I highly, highly recommend it. This is now looking to the east, which is primarily commercial and residential going this way. They also point out the historic Sully home right there. So you can see a little bit about that. We'll continue onwards. And if you are making your first visit or nth visit to air and space out here, you see there's ample parking, actually very nice parking if you happen to have a car. There's also a lot of easy access to Ubers. There's also a way that you can get here via the Silver Line. So we're going to go all the way around as I promised. And this is, again, another wing of Air and Space, which was built in 2003 with some generous contributions, as well as obviously support from the Smithsonian. We are now looking south, and you can see here they have some Native American sites that were this way in excavating here, as well as this is the rest of the museum that you can see up here, which I think is super, definitely worth the trip relative to the original Air and Space Museum built in 1976 that was on the mall. This one opened 2003 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Wright brothers' flight. So we're going to go back to the airport and watch, but this is just another sort of unique feature, and there's no charge to come up here. It's all provided by our tax dollars, and here we're looking west, and they even show you a view of what it looks like from space. So let's see if we get any good planes coming in. That's kind of what I'd like to see. I know some of the bigger birds were here. This is lunchtime right now. Some of the bigger birds are probably a little bit more towards the afternoon or in the early evening. So we might actually come back up here again. And what else can I show you? In the center, it's again pretty comfortable. You can learn about some of the tools of air traffic control. I'm gonna say number one is called a mimic. Oh, okay. So it looks like the airport, and this is obviously an older version, decommissioned in 1987. Number two is a vacuum tube. If you are a little bit younger, you probably won't remember those, but they used to be a common sight. 3 is the handheld light gun. 4 is the AWAS model, which you often see these near airports, so it's something I think probably many of you have seen. And then finally, a wind direction indicator and a speed indicator. There's also the chance to listen to air traffic control from Dulles. I think the sound may be turned off right now, but you can certainly do that if you're interested. In addition to the actual planes, you'll find many exhibits that include either flight equipment or, in this instance, model aircraft. There's actually a whole other group over here that caught my eye. I want to go take a quick look. Right here is Eastern Airlines. It's the first plane I ever flew on. Actually, probably just like this one, this DC-9. These were amazing. And Eastern Airline, they were really the classiest kind of airline way back in the day. Here you'll see some of the other models, which I think are just fun to see, including the A380, 707, and all sorts of other good stuff. And here, just to give you an idea how close you can get to the SR-71 Blackbird, the fastest air-breathing plane. And if you go up here, you can look right into, and thanks to the Mars family for sponsoring this, but I would say it feels like you're just right there. Wow, that's spectacular. And in fact, here, this is actually how close you are at this moment. This part of the engine, interestingly enough, would move in and out by 26 inches in order to speed or slow the intake of air, so that the air was not going into the engine at a speed faster than the speed of sound. So we'll do a quick walk around for this, and then I want to take you to go see the space shuttle. And I think this time we're actually I'm gonna let you go after this, but there's just so many good things to see here. I couldn't not get you this kind of footage, because I think to see these type of planes, again, really close and with a lot of good guides, is just a spectacular experience. There are any good number of tour guides and docents available to answer your questions. There you can see, as well as there's even an interactive display where you can do that. I'll just get this from the other side. Again, most of this on the side, you just see the engines. Obviously, you need some big engines to run you at 3 times the speed of sound. But you also have most of the center was largely for fuel. And here you can talk to a volunteer, and I think that's a really nice feature. Here you see a tour group, and here's where the flight crew sat. All right, I promised a strong finish. I don't know what's stronger than the space shuttle. I thought the Concorde was a great way to finish, but look at the space shuttle. So here you'll find there are any number of exhibits where you can learn about different things about space travel and what the flight suits are about. Right front and center, you're going to get nice up close and personal with the space shuttle. And that's just something I remember watching the space shuttle, getting to take the day off school to watch it take off and land. And that was just an amazing experience. To see it up close and personal like this is a whole other world. And this is the Space Shuttle Discovery, and you can see here up into the landing gear.
Well, I mean, I guess we just don't go as far anymore.
One of the things that I would note is the wingspan here is only 78 feet. This is not nearly as big as it would have appeared when watching it on TV. You'll also see each of these tiles has a serial number on it. The reason for that being that when these were obviously to protect the vehicle and the astronauts from the heat of re-entry, but they each had a slightly different shape, and so you had to get exactly the right tile on when they were replaced. You'll see the darker color ones. Those were ones that were likely more replaced more recently than some of the ones that are a little bit more charred or white. Up here is known as the Canada Arm. The Canada Arm is such a popular feature that it is featured on the back of the Canadian currency. I believe the $5 bill in Canada, obviously built in Canada. It moved many a satellite and other sort of space item, but it is not strong enough to lift itself on the ground, so it's engineered to work in space. And here, again, to be this close to the space shuttle, I don't think there's anywhere else in the world. I know the Intrepid has one. I don't know that you get as close with the Intrepid Museum in New York. There's any number of ways that you can learn about the various things that were used, like this is the manipulator foot restraint. Now I'm gonna take you, and we're going to go underneath the back. And I was really when we did that a little bit earlier, I was just blown away. Again, here you can see the heat and some of the tiles that would have been replaced. Ultimately, the cost of replacing and waterproofing these tiles was one of the reasons that I think the Space Shuttle program was eventually canceled. But there you get an idea of some of the tiles. And look at this. We are right underneath it all. I'm going to show you the back engines. The actual engines were taken out by NASA because they still had life in them, and I guess rocket engines don't grow on trees exactly. So we'll just get back a little further so you can see that. What a sight. Wow. There is also, when you visit here, there is a Space Shuttle cockpit that you can go in, like a simulated cockpit, not the real one, and a variety of other lunar modules. We'll show you, I think we showed you some of them from the upper balcony, but we'll just give you a taste of a few of them. This is obviously a space shuttle that has seen 39 missions. And, you know, you can see the wear and tear on it. This has been brought in and displayed as it was used rather than sort of prettied up for the museum. Here is the Mercury capsule that Alan Shepard, the first American in space, flew. And if you have an idea, this is 9'4" long, just over 6 feet at the heat shield. This is a very, very small space in which to go to space, amount of volume in which to go to space. So really brave people that would have been going in this. And you can see, obviously, the capsules got bigger over time, along with bigger rockets. And here is the Discovery.
8 months to get there.
And here you can ask questions if you like. I'll show you one more capsule here.
Because Trump has reduced NASA's budget, and so NASA was trying to go there.
This is the Apollo 11 capsule. The balloons on top were used to deploy if it landed upside down in the ocean. So right now, we're going to leave the space shuttle. I promise you a strong finish. And with that, we'll say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this. Could not highly enough recommend coming out here to Air and Space on Virginia out by Dulles. It's well worth the visit. Great people, great experience, and just so much history and learning. It'd be hard not to enjoy your day. I hope you enjoyed these videos. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. And when you're in the parking lot waiting to go home, you can watch planes at Dulles Landing. This is a Gulfstream 550 coming in. And that's all, folks. Hey, thanks so much for joining. We could not highly enough recommend the Air and Space Museum. You notice when we came in earlier, it was nice and open. We got here right at 10 when they opened. You will see now the crowds are building. That is the observation deck up there. And with that, we will say goodbye for now. And a United 777. That's all.